So, Jim Sullivan with eDiscovery AI. Really appreciate you spending a little time with me today. Just for folks who may not know me, I'm Jeff Johnson, Chief Innovation Officer at Purpose Legal. One of the things I focus on is the use of AI in our services generally. And today we'll focus primarily on eDiscovery, in eDiscovery document review and ECA feature sets. Um, and in that area, one of the tools that we've had a lot of fun using this year with our clients and had a lot of success on behalf of our clients is eDiscovery AI's early case intelligence suite of features. Talk about inside ECI and case elements today, but appreciate you spending time with us.
Well, thanks for having me back. It's always a good sign when you're invited back after your first session.
Fantastic. Well, I want to just mention, I think it's worth noting from the beginning, we have found perhaps originally unintended uses for the early case intelligence suite. We've used it in deposition preps. We've used it in reviewing the other side's production to us post discovery. And we've used it honestly in um, situations where it's a low or no review situation, maybe after a TAR 1.0 workflow where we've got a bunch of documents that we're going to produce, and we'd kind of like to have a little bit better idea what we're producing as they go out the door. We've used early case intelligence for those uses. But today I want to spend most of the time talking about, I think, what you originally intended it for: early case intelligence, evaluating data sets as we go into the discovery process and have a mountain of data collected. Had a lot of situations, just a couple that I'll name off the bat, um, where we're working toward a review, whether that's an AI enabled review or a human review, and we figure out that the population our client has brought to the table for us is 2%, 3%, 5% responsive. We can bring early case intelligence and inside ECI to bear and get that population really whittled down quite a bit before we even start the review. Um, does that mirror kind of what you're seeing with your clients?
Well, I mean, first of all, I appreciate that you are finding unique use cases. I just love being able to, use tools to solve problems, and those problems are going to vary, obviously. So whatever we can use it for, that's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the whole purpose is to just be able to identify and understand more information about your data set. Get those insights early on into a case. You have a new data set, you're trying to figure out what you're dealing with. Um, that's kind of the primary use case of just trying to learn more about your data set earlier and earlier than we could before. But yeah, I think that the real value comes with culling, using it as a way of culling out the junk, culling out non-responsive documents with much more accuracy than we've ever done before. I mean, we all know keywords have kind of ruled for forever, and we also know that keywords aren't good. I mean, enough studies have shown that keywords are very, very good at missing relevant material. Not understanding the context. And I do think that data sets of today are even more likely to cause those types of issues. We have more chat messages, we have more teams, we have more text messages than ever before, and people talk differently on those. A lot of slang, a lot of abbreviations, just keywords are not going to work well there. Not to mention foreign language documents that you have mixed languages. I don't know a lot of situations where people are putting in keywords in different languages that often. So it's one of those things that I think we've kind of looked the other way at how bad they are because it was kind of the best option we had at the time. But now we're really seeing that we can get a much, much higher level of accuracy in the culling. We can get very, very high recall while keeping precision fairly high, and just get a much, much better result at a very low cost. I mean, I think that's inevitably going to be the future, that we rely on products that are going to get us that data faster.
So I'm going to, Jim, you and I hardly ever disagree, at least in the conversations we've had, but I'm going to disagree with you a little bit and then circle back. I actually don't think keywords are bad. I think the
Okay.
way we use keywords probably more than 90%, 95% of the time is ineffective. We had a client, and the reason I bring it up is because I was just on a call with a client earlier today that has a very robust process that they've been following for years around layered key terms and very iterative sampling of the results for those key terms, that at the end of the day, I think they get results that are pretty darn good.
Right.
It's just a lot of effort and a lot of time, and can easily outweigh the expense of what we would get from in early case intelligence, and wouldn't have all of the benefits that we have with that.
Right. And it is good to hear that they're doing sampling and that validation. Because frankly, I don't want to, throw any names out there, but I've definitely seen a lot of situations where you're running keywords blind. And unfortunately, a lot of times keywords are kind of backwards. It's what's our budget? How many documents can we afford to review? What keywords do we need to use to get to that budget? And, I think that we've just kind of all accepted that as how it works. But yeah, no, absolutely love to hear that they're sampling. Love to hear that they're validating, doing iterative keywords. Yeah, there's definitely approaches that are much better, and that's great to hear that they're taking those steps.
Well, the good news here is I just meant to, maybe I just wanted to be disagreeable. I don't know. But they are convinced that this is easier, better, and we're just, the project we're doing with them, they are opting for the eDiscovery AI early case intelligence approach rather than that elaborate search term process. I want to circle back to something that you mentioned because I think it's a useful conversation to have, at least briefly. Tell me more about short message format, text messages that have been very problematic for sort of historic TAR technologies. What's the best practice method for preparing short message format data and analyzing it in your early case intelligence tools?
Right. No, and that's a tough question because, number one, I think, we know that the issue with what makes keywords difficult are a few things. Number one is kind of that slang, the abbreviations, a lot of contextual discussions, misspellings. Those are all things that AI handles really well. But you get to the point of how are we gonna chunk out those text messages? Obviously, it's unlikely that we're going to be able to feed everything in as one document. And it's probably not going to be useful if we do, feed in months and months of conversations as one. So how do you chunk those out? I've seen a number of different approaches. I would say probably chunking them out by day is probably the most common. You'll see like maybe situations where they'll say if there's a 4-hour gap in between messages, we'll treat those as a different thread. And that's probably the best way to do it. But that's going to get you with using AI to review those documents, it's at least going to get you down to what's relevant. And then if you see, one document in a thread that happens to have multiple conversations about multiple issues, you're still getting to the relevant content much quicker. But you do need that context, is unfortunately, because, if we feed them in one at a time, we're also missing a ton of information as well. So it's kind of a balance of those two.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to get to, is we still don't want to, even though the technology is new, we still don't want to feed it in.
Yeah, it doesn't really mean a lot when I just give a smiley face emoji or I'll be there. That sounds good, right? So that context is very important, and that's one of the things that makes makes generative AI better than a lot of other options, because it understands that context, where keywords frankly don't really matter. If you chunk it out by individual message, it's hitting on that or not. It's not looking at context at all.
Yeah. So as we sort of maybe come to the close of our discussion today, I didn't want to end that without talking about case elements. So you released that feature this summer. We've been working with it for a bit and have really enjoyed it. And I think it really sort of, it offers a completely new layer to the ECA type culling workflow that we talked about before. Again, with a client earlier this week, talking with them about their strategy for using eDiscovery AI. And they had search terms that they could say, look, Jeff, we know these 17 custodians are key players in the project, And we can probably just run a couple of simple search terms and identify the number they had was actually 300,000 relevant documents that let's just not review it. Let's not throw it into the AI. And well, I said maybe. It depends on what value you're looking for out of the AI. If you're looking for us to cull data, then yeah, we may not get a lot out of running insight or running early case intelligence AI against this data set. But think about the key people, the key timelines, that I showed you within the technology and that we've started to see in the case. What do you think it will do to the analysis if we exclude all of those documents from the AI, and therefore we don't get that level of analysis within case elements? And they very quickly saw the value. Yeah, you're right. We need to include these documents that we know are absolutely relevant or most likely relevant in the data set that we're throwing into the AI for the express reason of getting that case elements output. Talk to me a little bit about how your clients have used case elements most effectively. I know it's pretty new. It's pretty new.
Yeah, no, and it's pretty new. We're starting to see some really good use cases. Obviously, the whole point is let's get that information to you as quickly as possible in a new data set. A lot of people look at it and say, well, some of those tools like a timeline generation really don't fit within what I see as ECA. I see that as something that I might want to prepare at the end of the project. Or, if I'm starting to put together things for depot prep and, the key people is really helpful for that. But, as we discuss more and more about it, the whole point is with generative AI, we can get it to you on day one. The fact that, most of the time that you might not need it until the end of a project doesn't mean that we should just not get it to you as soon as we can, right? Like, I kind of have you might want it later, but if we can get it to you right away, we should. I can't fathom the idea that we're not going to get you information that we can get you because it's not usual or it's not usually done that way. Because, we see a lot of cases that are investigations. Litigation really comes down to a few different types of cases. I have an obligation to produce the opposing party. That's one case. But another case is I need to understand my data set. I need to review the documents. I might need to produce as well, but I need to understand what's in here to prepare for something. And, I think those of us that have done this for a long time realize that oftentimes it's, 50 documents that matter. I mean, it might be 3 documents that matter, but it's going to be some small set of documents that really matter to your case that, that you're going to use in a trial, that you're going to use in depositions that really have important factors. This is not, I might produce, 200,000 documents, but only 50 are the ones that I'm going to use or really care about. And so why not just get you those 50 documents right away? Why not just get those 50 documents in front of you so you can see them, so there's no surprises at the end, 72 hours into your case, 48 hours after you've collected the data, just to be able to see, okay, this is what we're dealing with. Now I can decide how my case strategy works out. I can decide if I want to, push to settle faster. How I want to handle that case depends on those things. And just, think of the difference on, getting those 50 documents or getting to those facts right away versus taking 3 to 6 months. And how, what would you give to be able to get that information sooner to help plan, to help make your case better, to help allocate resources more efficiently, and to really just, position you better to win that case. So, we're trying to basically get everything that you could possibly want about your case right away, not 6 months down the road, not after you do a bunch of prompt iterations, not after you figure out things. Right away, you load the data in and we tell you everything that we can tell you about that data set immediately. And so that's kind of where we're focusing on. And as we continue to roll out new tools, new solutions, that's kind of the focus is let's just get you what you're looking for right away. Let's not, make you go through a long, tedious process. Let's not make it, wait. Let's not wait till the end because that's how it's normally done. Let's just get you every piece of information to make your case as clear and easy to understand as possible.
Yeah, no, and we have seen.
I am ready. Please provide the information.
And we have seen that in our use of eDiscovery AI's technology this year. Just really thrilled with the new features you've added and continue to add. If history is any indication, then I expect that I'll be wanting to do another one of these conversations with you in the coming months, talking about whatever features you have up your sleeve soon. Really looking forward to that, Jim. And thanks again for spending time with me today.
No, thanks for having me. And I'll just say that you're not going to have to wait long. We got really cool stuff lined up. We'll be announcing very soon. And I'm excited. I think it's something that it's definitely going to move the needle, even from where we're at. So I love it. I can't wait till we can get that word out there. But yeah, it won't take much longer now.
Not the least bit surprised, Jim. Thanks again.
Thanks.